Well, hello, everybody. How are you doing today? I am excited to be with all of you. We're going to be talking about should statements. I mean, how many of you are telling yourself all day long, I must do this, I should do this, I have to do this? There's a famous psychologist, Albert Ellis, and he coined the term musterbation, which just refers to people believing that they must live by a set of absolutes and unrealistic demands. And you know what? It just doesn't work. It just creates a lot of stress and anxiety, especially when it comes to your weight and your body. If you've organized your life with tons of have tos, tons of must nots, tons of shoulds and shouldn'ts, then you feel a little stressed? You feel a little anxious? Well, of course. So I want you to really look at what you're telling yourself because when it comes to food, a lot of times I hear you say things like, I shouldn't eat that. I shouldn't have that. I should eat more vegetables. I should be better at tuning into my body. I must get this weight off. And when we put a lot of shoulds and musts into our mind, it produces a whole lot of pressure. And it's added pressure that you don't need in the area where you're trying to transform. And so when we move from shoulds and musts and have tos into want to, get to, excited to, exploring kind of language, then what happens is we shift from all the rules of our lives, all that mental masturbation into more freedom, into more strength, into more opportunities of self will and making choices from a very, very powerful place. And so that's where I want you to be when it comes to losing weight. So, I have a few questions that I think would really help you see and transform some of this should, must language. So, the first question I want you to ask yourself is this should, must, have to, is it absolutely true? I shouldn't eat chocolate. I shouldn't eat late at night. I shouldn't have this food. Is it true? What would it be like if you changed that statement to, you know what? I'd like to eat that chocolate when I'm hungry. You know what? I'd like to wait for a little bit because that's what makes me feel good. I'd like to have more dark chocolate because that actually feels better in my body. If you can move your sentences, your phrases into a more kind, loving place for yourself and your brain, then what happens is then you're not fighting these rules. And when your brain hears all these rules for some of you, it just wants to rebel. It just wants to fight. It just wants to show you that it will do it because freedom is what it's craving. And so, another thing I want you to think about is what would you tell your best friend? You must do this. You have to do this. You need to do this. No, but you might tell your best friend, hey, you know what? Why don't you give yourself the same courtesy? Why don't you explore why you might be turning to food? Why don't you explore if that works really well in your body? Why don't you determine if that is something that makes you look and feel really good? So, I want you to start thinking about the words that you're telling yourself. Is that what you would tell your best friend? Somebody you really care about? Or all those shoulds and musts creating so much anxiety and frustration and mean dialogue inside of your head that it's creating a lot of cruel conversations in relationship with food that it just doesn't need to have. The next thing that can be really helpful for you is to phrase the statements that you tell yourself as a wish. So here's an example. The statement, I must eat better, really adds a lot of unnecessary pressure to yourself. And you can identify the desire for something different, but you can do that without the criticism that we often give ourselves around certain foods or a weight or a body. So you might want to change the statement to, I would like to eat foods that feel better in my body. I would like to choose some more vegetables this week. Changing the statement shows you what you strive for instead of put stringent, strict rules around food. And here's what's cool about this ability to state something as a wish is that it gives you a little room for change. We all like a little freedom. We all like a little mental room for change. And so, if you can take these three areas, asking yourself if the should is an absolute truth, looking at the statements that you're telling yourself and asking, would I tell my best friend this? And third, you want to phrase the statement as a wish, instead of an absolute. And so let's try that. Try moving away from that musterbation, those shoulds, those musts, those have tos, those beliefs that just create so much pressure. And then move into these three ways. And I know that you will feel a lot less stress, a lot more joy in relationship with food. And I know you still want to see results. I know you still want to lose weight. And of course, I want you to see that. And of course, I want you to have that, but you can do it in a kinder, more loving, compassionate way versus putting so much pressure and stress on yourself. And if you're putting all this stress and pressure on yourself to be a certain way, and you're finding that you keep rebelling, then this is an opportunity to shift the conversation in your head from pressure, from must, from shoulds, from have tos, to doing something slightly differently. All right, everybody. If you want more tools and tips, keep listening to my podcast, keep reviewing, share it with those that you love. It means so much to me. And if you haven't taken the free weight loss course, I'll have that available for you. You can just click the link to take the free weight loss course or head on over to thinwithin and see all the different resources that I have for you. Thinwithin.com is where it's at. All right, everybody, have yourself a beautiful, beautiful day. And let's stop musterbating. Bye, everyone.